And we're back for another episode of Flushing It Out podcast, and we have our first major guest. Shout out Windrum for getting this guest. Um, he's working his way back from the Springer News debacle, but it's okay. I'm probably never going to let him live that one down. But we have Justin Clemenza, and by the way, Clem, I had no idea that that was your name since everybody calls you Clem. But I looked it up. Justin Clemenza, Barstool blogger, also does a lot of podcasts through Barstool, but he also does the We Gotta Believe podcast, Mets podcast through Barstool. So, Clem, thanks for hopping on with us.
Thanks for having me. The only people who call me Justin are my wife and my parents. I guess my siblings and stuff. I get people who get like literally angry at me. They say, "Don't you ever say the J word again on the podcast." So if anyone's listening that only knows me as Clem, I apologize. It was I should have warned you guys. Now I'm just kidding. Great to be here, man. We have some excitement going on, and I mean we don't know what else is going to happen. The George Springer debacle that did not happen, at least not yet. So you could just be a few. Weeks, months, whatever it is early at this rate with the free agency. We'll see.
Yeah, for sure. So I want to start off by saying, I mean, obviously, we probably know your thoughts in the offseason. All of us probably have the same, similar thought process. But what is your excitement level going into this year compared to years past? I mean, obviously, like in years past, it's not as high, but like even in 06 and early 2000s and all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, because like 06 – because I still remember I'm an old man compared to you guys. You guys have some fresh faces. I have some gray in the beard here. I can remember a lot of those things.
Yeah.
06 was kind of a year early. And I know they said it, afterwards and all that stuff. I always thought 07 was the year they were going to really put it together. So I guess 07 was when I got really excited, which, wow, that ended really poorly. Huh? I think like this year, this is the thing. I should be like, a lot of people I feel like are like 10s and 9s. I'm like a solid 8. I think if we get the free agents and all this stuff, it's just we live in this weird Corona world. Nothing feels real anymore, So I don't even know what's going on. Is the season going to happen? Manfred tells me it's going to happen, which makes me think it won't happen because he's such a goddamn moron.
No, Manfred. Screw Manfred. You can't listen to a word he says.
The worst.
Yeah,
exactly. You can't listen to a word he says. But at the same point, it's like, I just look at it's like the future, like the next 10, 20 years is a 10 out of 10. So maybe I should just say this year is a 10. It's just like, this is the other thing too. And I'm sure we'll talk about him a bunch, but like Francisco Lindor, when I follow baseball, I kind of just stay in my like National League Mets, like brain and stuff like that. There's so much stuff going on with the Mets. They do so much stuff to our heart and our souls. I kind of just stay in that little window. I have a fantasy baseball team. I'll watch whatever, on TV if it's on and stuff like that in terms of other teams' games. But like, I never really got a chance to truly appreciate Francisco Lindor. But I feel like once, game one, I'm like, oh my God, I'm in love with this guy. Because the amount of Indians fans that have just hit me up between him and Cookie Carrasco and are like, just like cherish this guy, like take care of him. We love him. I've never heard anything like this about like any guys any of my teams have ever signed. So that in itself makes me like a 10 out of 10 excitement that I'm just going to love these guys.
Yeah. And honestly, like it's kind of has this trade has parallels to the Piazza trades, Gary Carter trades, Keith Hernandez, that the team gets, the big superstar, you know what I mean? And then it just throws them directly into contention with the best teams in the league.
Yeah, that I remember. I think Keith said it, right? Keith or Gary said like this is like when they got Gary Carter, and I mean there are some definite, up the middle player, all-star, all this kind of stuff, and like always smiling, and that was Carter's MO, in the '80s with the Expos and stuff. It's obviously Francisco Lindor now. So I mean, boys, things are changing right now, and I mean I don't.
It's a nice
I understand.
feeling.
It's a really nice feeling, yes. And I know why a lot of like Kevin KFC on my podcast, he's my co-host there. Like he always talks to Yankees. He grew up in the Bronx. I can only imagine what it would be like growing up in enemy territory during the dynasty of Jeter and all them. But like, it is kind of nice to see all the Yankee fans starting to freak out, being like, why the Mets doing all this stuff? We're in on all the free agents and everything. And the fact that they're kind of just hoping they could just re-sign the guys that they had, like DJ and LeMahieu. It's kind of I don't know, man. It's like, I feel like I'm living in another parallel world, which I mean that it already feels like that because we're living in the middle of a pandemic where we can't like go to the grocery store without a mask on.
Yeah. It is a complete 180 with the franchise. And I get like, how do you feel about this like three-headed monster in the front office with Cohen, Sandy, and Porter? Because I feel like, they're just like clicking on all cylinders.
Yeah. I mean, I love how Steve Cohen had Sandy in place all ready to roll even before he bought the team. I feel like probably he had him ready to go back when he was initially going to get the team the first time before Jim
definitely.
Vaughn cost his family hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know about you guys. I always liked Sandy, his first go around here. I always liked that you could tell like he wanted to do more, and the way he said things in the media, you could tell he was like, I'm basically being handcuffed by these two cheap morons that own the team. I just love seeing him getting a redemption shot of it. And then everything you heard about, the two other guys they had with Porter, and who's the other guy they got as the guy they got
from Boston. Yeah, the assistant GM. I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
But everything you hear about all those guys, it's like these guys are like top notch. And did you see the Peter Gammons tweet today, where he's like, they're basically, not only Mets fans shouldn't only be excited about like the players and like the future they're getting in terms of players, but he's like, you're basically updating from like 18th century ways of like scouting and development and all this kind of stuff. Which, I mean, Peter Gammons going with the 18th century. Pete, that was fucking rude right there. We're talking 1700s at this point.
Yeah, Sandy's always been great with all that scouting and like Sandy in general with his era. He had Harvey come in, he got Wheeler. He drafted Conforto, Alonso. He drafted a lot of great guys in that era that are now huge pieces on his team now, which you can't. I mean, having him back is going to be awesome.
You said it, man. That's the biggest thing with Sandy is like all of our good players, like the last 2 years under Brody, were his guys for the most part. And like Edwin Diaz did figure it out a little, and JD Davis had some nice hits and stuff like that. But they were basically all Sandy's guys. I think one or two of the guys, like DeGrom might have been Omar, but a lot of like you said, the Alonsos, McNeils, those are all Sandy's guys. So, and I mean, Kalenic should be the guy going in this set. Kalenic would
Don't say it enough. Don't even say it.
It doesn't hurt. And that's the one thing. Like I get like Seattle Mariners fans out of the blue will just like tag me on like a tweet about him or a video. And like the last year I kind of understood it, but they're still doing like, guys, it's over now. Like that doesn't mean like it still hurts, but I know he's coming back here. If Steve Cohen wants Jared Kalenic to be a Met in whenever he's a free agent, I'm already thinking about a guy who doesn't even have his like major league clock start yet. He'll come back to the Mets. It's just going to happen. He'll pay like we always hear Steve's like, I'm not going to do anything stupid to get to the future. Bobby Axelrod is going to do whatever he does to get Jared. Because we all would do the same thing, right? All four of us would just get Jared Kalenic and be like, fuck it. If he becomes anywhere near the guy that we've built him up in our brains to be, we would do it just on principle alone.
Oh, yeah.
So you mentioned when you were talking about Brody, the two guys, Edwin and JD Davis, and I know you guys were always huge. You and KFC were huge JD guys in 2019 during that whole hot stretch we had. Yep. So with all the rumors around DJ LeMahieu, and we were talking about Chris Bryant last week, like how do you feel about JD sort of like taking a back seat from a guy we thought could be a core piece on a good team?
JD, like there's a few guys like this on the Mets where it's like they're guys I like and I don't want to move them or I don't want to, move on from them. But I'd be fine moving on from JD Davis. It's like, you guys know how baseball is. If it always the ball finds the weak spot in the biggest spot, you know what I mean? And I feel like JD Davis, he can't play third base. Now I will say this. I feel like the front office, either they're playing like a game of possum here, but they seem to really like the way JD Davis can field, or at least like he at least works on it. But I do think in a big spot, they're going to want to have like legitimate professionals in their position, which is like the polar opposite of the Wilpons. The Wilpons would be like, do you have a glove? You have an outfielder glove? All right, go play left field. And then we would just watch Daniel Murphy blow no hitters for Johan. And, Lucas Duda looked lost out there. Poor Dom Smith that was a nightmare. But it's just like they just never built the team right and they never made it fit. I think this front office is going to make things fit. The question is like, is Chris Bryant like the perfect solution? The other thing is like we kind of are sitting pretty right now because Steve Cohen didn't get to take a bath last year like all these other owners did. So I feel like they're just waiting for like whoever is the best third baseman they can get for the cheapest price that is in that like tier of guys that might be getting paid in a year or two, like Brian is obviously. I feel like you just get him for a song. I mean, not nearly what we gave up for Lindor. So I do worry about his shoulder a little bit. But like, who was it? Seager was the other one I heard them being.
Kyle Seager from Seattle, which, I was reading, you mentioned Brian, and like we wouldn't have to give up as much as we did for Lindor. I was reading these Cubs fans come up with these trades, and they're asking for like Francisco Alvarez. One of them had Jeff thrown in with JD Davis, and I was like, oh my God. I'm like, I thought Mets fans, I'm like, we can be delusional at times regarding trades, but like these Cubs fans are just completely over their heads on their ideas.
I mean, that used to be our thing though, right? Yeah. Like, I'll never forget too. It was Harvey. It was when we had like the pitchers coming up, and it was like Javi Baez for Matt Harvey. I'm like, I would never give up Matt Harvey.
I remember
And
that
then
one.
And Mookie Betts for Matt Harvey too. The Mookie Betts Matt Harvey thing.
Yep. And it's funny because like the Red Sox fan and the Cubs fans are definitely people that kind of have these crazy brains like we do, except they actually had ownership who would pay people. So like, oh no, we're not going to do that. But after Harvey like went down in flames, like, man, wish we pulled the trigger on one of those like 7 trades they were rumored for. But yeah, if I had to say because we also have to get a center fielder, we also have to get another starter. It sounds like I feel like they could live at third, and then that's a trade that maybe comes during the season if JD Davis is like, yo, I am terrible at fielding, which I feel like it's just gonna. We always have to have someone. There always has to be someone on the Mets that we're all gonna hate. I mean, usually it's in the bullpen, the guy, but there's usually a position player. I think we could all agree Wilson Ramos was that guy this year, right? So
laziest catcher, probably next to Gary Sanchez.
Right, exactly. Catchers who can't catch. That's just how like New York was doing this year. It was wild.
Yeah.
I feel like we're gonna have that guy, and I hate to say it because I know like I love JD Davis, KFC. That's his guy. 877 runs now is like a beautiful thing to say. The fact his name is Jonathan Davis. The D stands for Davis. I love. But I just feel like not being able to play third base at the hot corner, it's like one of those things that's just going to drive us nuts, especially then you're going to have all the people saying, should have traded for Arenado instead of Lindor, even though Lindor probably putting up like a Hall of Fame season. It's just like us Mets fans, we're still going to be the crazy morons who are calling in the WFAN, making crazy trade requests. And all
Absolutely.
So you also mentioned the bullpen, and we always find that guy to hate, but there's always been one guy in the bullpen that we always love. For you guys last year was Jared Hughes. But right now, I mean, the guy who's been it for a couple of years has been Seth Lugo, your guy, the Puerto Rican. Yeah. I mean, what do you think we should do? Does he go to the bullpen? Does he go in the rotation until Noah comes back? What do you think they should do about that?
So, yeah, I'm kind of torn on this because I actually responded to a tweet the other day and they're like, what would you like to see? I thought it was, what do you think is going to happen? Let's see. Let's just flesh it out here. So we got DeGrom 1, Stroman and Carrasco 2, 3. Peterson,
David
Peterson 4. Then that 5 spot. I mean, I don't think you could give Matz like the 5 spot without earning it. And even in spring training, like last year, he was great in spring training, right? There was that how good he was looking at all this stuff, and he did absolutely nothing. So I think you have to fill that spot. I thought Lugo would be that number 5 guy because I think it's easier to go 5 and then bring him back to the pen when Noah comes back. If you get a guy instead, or if Matt's performs instead of trying to stretch him out middle of the season, which of course Brody tried to do in the middle of a shortened Corona season because we had a moron as a general manager the last 2 years.
He's an agent, that's why he's got to stick to CAA.
Exactly. The one thing he did do, he gave us DeGrom for like $100 million less. So that was actually really nice of him. It's absolutely criminal what they're doing to Jacob DeGrom. But so I would be fine if they started Lugo in the rotation, then moved him to the pen later in the year. So it's kind of like you don't have to go out and get that because now you have to trade. Those bullpen arms are like a crazy price when it comes to the season, and everyone's trying to get the same 3 guys. The other thing about it is if you just look at just the way our bullpens lined up now, we have Diaz there who makes like some money, but even though he's not like elite closer money, Familia makes a ton of money this year. Trevor May, who we signed to a decent contract, and then we have Betances back. So it's 4 righties in the bullpen, and I have no problem. You want to tell me Lugo's the best of those guys when he's cooking? And he could be our closer, or I like to think of him as like our Andrew Miller weapon, where he comes in the 6th inning when a starter is in a jam, 2nd and 3rd, 1 out or something. I'd be 100% fine with that. But I'm also fine with him being the 5 starter and then moving him to the pen. And I'm also interested to see how they're going to handle this because you heard a lot about Porter, how he's great with dealing with people and he's a personable guy. And I do think that's kind of the way a lot of teams are going to start trying to head as we go into especially after this crazy year with all the different social movements and trying to humanize these players who have been kind of forgot, they're just players to us, right? But these are real people out there. I do think they're going to try to do good by Lugo and be like, hey man, you'll get your shot at that 5th spot. That being said, I also have this really weird soft spot in my heart for Corey Kluber. He was like a guy. You guys always have that guy that you're like, I think this guy's going to be good, and he ends up becoming good. I remember I saw Corey Kluber at Yankee Stadium once when he was young, and I was said to my buddy, I'm like, that guy is going to be sick. and he ended up being good. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. I'm a moron. He had a good game, I guess. He probably had a couple of good innings, and I thought he was gonna be good, and I ended up being right about it. So I've always had a soft spot in my heart for him. So
I feel like a Kluber move, like a Kluber move might be like the old Mets, where it's like we're bringing in the guy past his prime. You know what I mean? Trying to like save whatever's left.
There's been a lot of talk though today about Kluber threw a bullpen session, 40, 50 pitches with a lot of scouts there, and the Mets, they were said to be pretty interested in it. Which, I mean, I could see him coming in as a fifth, but then when Noah comes back, you just have that whole issue where you got 6 good starters, which can never hurt. But
yeah, I'm with you guys on that too, and that's the thing. That's why I'm kind of like, if it happens, cool. If not, but we do need to fill that spot. Taijuan Walker's another guy who's out there, which again, that name is just a fun name to say. And Kluber does feel like a Wilpon move, but we would get Kluber in like 2 more years when he's pitched even like less games than he has all the last few years, and he'd be on his like last shot basically to make the deal. Like, we were talking about like Bartolo Colon coming to join the team like as recently as last season. I mean, that's how like much of a change this is. Adrian Gonzalez was just our first baseman. Jose Reyes was our third baseman. Like only a few seasons ago. It's crazy to think about now. So Lugo is like, I'd love to either start as a starter, move him to the pen, or just, you just keep him in the pen. I'm fine with it either way. I really am. I love the guy. I kind of want to see him get whatever he wants to get, and if he wants to have a chance as a starter. And I do think. I don't know if you guys heard Sandy. He was on with I think it was Robertson Carton, and he was saying he's like Lugo was a good starter for us back in 16. Like him and Gazelman were the reason they got to the playoffs that year. I mean, DeGrom was hurt, and Thor was dealing too. I mean, why can't that guy come back out again? But I think most people want to see him in the pen, so I'm fine. It's just my guy. I love that guy, man. How can you not love him?
He's got to protect him at all costs.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So with the way this team's looking right now, how would you go about the rest of this offseason?
All right. So I still want to sign Springer, but I also have to preface this because I can tell it's coming. If by some chance he goes to the Blue Jays or whoever else, mystery team, I'm more than fine with it being another. I'm more than fine with him signing a defensive guy, Jackie Bradley Jr. or someone even like that. We've gone crazy with the Juan Lagares. All Brody did was trade our young pitching prospects for guys who couldn't hit that were good in center field. I feel like Sandy and Porter would be better at navigating, getting us a better guy who could at least have some sort of stick, unless he's a magician in the outfield. I really want Springer, but whatever it is, I think there's one more big move that is going to rock the baseball world. And whether it's third base, I'd rather it be center field than anything though. Cause I imagine you guys, like I said, you're younger than me, but you guys haven't seen much good center field play.
Yeah.
And you see when you watch other teams, usually the Braves or someone, you're just that's why center field is so important. Cause that guy gets to the ball or that guy just makes everything easier. And I won't even get into the Nimmo conversation because that always ends in a civil war, but move him to the corner, keep Conforto, who we all love, in the other corner, and just have a guy who can just cover a ton of ground. Again, typical Wilpon fashion. The last time we had a center fielder was Carlos Beltran after we already had a center fielder, Mike Cameron, and we haven't had a center fielder since. It's crazy. We had 2, then we had Beltran as one for a little, and then we haven't had one since. It's been absolutely nuts.
It's one of the most important positions.
Malfa, before your next question, Clem, you brought up a good point about left field. As of right now, let's even say opening day was tomorrow, would you have Dom Smith or Nimmo in left field? Because we've talked about this on previous podcasts here.
Yeah, so no DH, obviously we're saying, and then we're going Nimmo or Dom.
Yeah.
I mean, God, I
have to have that bat in the lineup.
Yeah, I hate the DH so much. I'm praying for it to come back. It's so in fantasy football, we'll try to change rules, and everyone always votes hey, let's do 6-point quarterback touchdowns. Who are you keeping next year? Oh, Aaron Rodgers, back in his prime. It's come on, guys. That's not. We don't want to do that. I hate people who vote based on their team, but I am so much in love with the DH now. I used to hate it just because of Dom. To answer your question, I feel like you got to kind of. I think you have to play the outfielder in the outfield, and you could have that. You could almost do Dom as a because I mean, let's be honest, Pete's defense regressed last year too, and it was a short season. You don't know what else could have been going on. He could have been a little hurt. He had Jeff McNeil was throwing balls directly into the dirt, so it didn't make it easier. But you can kind of do like a Pete the first few innings, and then Dom. I don't know if you could do a double. Because at the end of the game, you want to have Pete's bat in there, but if you're up, you can kind of put Dom's glove in there with his bat, which doesn't have the power, but has so much other good stuff that comes out of it. I think you have to throw Nimmo in there. I'd love to. I just feel like those days of putting a square peg into a round hole are done with now with this new team. But man, that's going to be a complete that's going to be a lot of my brain working overtime trying to figure out how Pete and Dom, but then the defense is getting worse. It's this evil trick puzzle that I don't even want to think about until opening day, when it's inevitably going to come up in the biggest spot possible.
Oh, absolutely.
We're still the Mets.
Yeah.
It's still that kind of stuff's going to come up.
So then to finish it off here, what would you consider with the way this team stands right now? I mean, obviously it'll change if they sign a Springer or a LeMahieu, but what would you consider a success this year, and what would you consider a failure?
I think a success is you have to make the playoffs. I mean, it's not the hardest thing to do, but I think you have to make. I mean, the way baseball's going, all these teams are just selling off. They're crying poverty, everything else. The Padres are going for it, clearly. The NL Central, I don't know what's going on in the NL Central. Obviously, the Braves are legit, but the Braves always find a way to bring themselves back to the pack, whether it's an injury or just some guy they signed or let go that just ends up haunting them. The Nats are still there. The Phillies are becoming the new us, basically. Their ownership doesn't know how to spend their money right, it seems. They're just constantly underperforming in terms of some of their players. Bryce's contract is just an albatross, it seems, on those books. So based on all that, I think now granted, if everyone's healthy and all that kind of stuff, I think playoffs is at least should be the goal here. At least should be the goal. And I don't see out of all the teams, who's there in the National League that's oh no, you have to get through them to make the World Series. The Padres are going to be going through this stuff all the time. Obviously the Dodgers are the Dodgers still. But other than that, there's no other team that is oh my God, I don't know how we're going to match up with them. And there's just something about the Dodgers. I maybe it was 2015. It's I feel like we're going to have the horses to throw at them. They're kind of the gold standard. They're what Steve Cohen wants his team to become. But until then, why not? Why not? World Series World Series is obviously the success, but you have to make the playoffs. Anything less than the playoffs, we're gonna get taunted, and we're gonna earn it too, right? Because we've all been living pretty good the last few months here.
Absolutely. So actually, just one last question here. We want to know your best Mets memory and the most painful one. And if you don't mind, start off with the best, and then we'll end with the most painful, because that's always more entertaining.
Okay, let's see. Best and most painful. I've been asked most painful a few times, and I change it 6 different times. I'm gonna if it's okay, I'm gonna start with most painful because I know that one.
All right.
Most painful, and again, this is because I'm an old man. 1999 NLCS against the Braves. Mets are down 3-0 in the series, come all the way back. Kenny Rogers on the mound. I think it was the 10th inning. Bases loaded, walks home the winning run. I am convinced to this day, you cannot tell me differently, that Mets team wasn't going to be the first team to come back from a 3-0 deficit in a series. Now, in a weird way, it all worked out because the Red Sox did it to the Yankees, and Yankees fans having to wear that the rest of their life is almost a good enough consolation prize for me.
Definitely.
But that 90, out of all the teams I've ever loved, the 06 team I loved because they were so good. I Wright and Reyes were guys that I loved the minute I heard about them to the minute they came in. I just loved everything about 06 because we just won all the time. It was so much fun. That 99 team, it was a very special team. I don't know what it was. It was they weren't great, but they were just enough good guys and they just mixed well. So that would be the most painful. My best moment, I guess it would have been beating the Braves or clinching the NL East in 2006, because being the team to knock the Braves off of there, I was lucky enough to get to the game, went down to the field. I could still smell David Wright was smoking a cigar, and they were drinking Coronas and all that stuff. I could still smell the cigar from David Wright. So that had to be the number one. So it's not a great moment, but it's a pretty good moment. And I have to say, I feel like we're due for some great moments in the next 5 years.
Oh yeah.
Do you guys think 3 years, 5 years, or more for next World Series for the Mets?
You know,
Yeah,
we were
I
just
agree.
talking about this right before you came on. The three of
Yeah.
us were actually
Really?
just discussing this.
Yeah, I'm calling 2022 that we're at least in a World Series.
Okay, that's fair. I like that.
Yeah. And obviously I think within, the 2020s we'll absolutely have at least one.
Yeah, did you guys see that tweet that's going around where they predicted the next like 10 World Series and it had like us
Yeah.
beating the Yankees in
Yeah, it was
2020?
bullshit. That's
Yeah,
it was
that's bullshit.
Too late.
I think they did that on purpose too, to do right after Stevie's 5-year window. So then all us Mets fans would be cool retweeting and getting all fired up about it.
Yeah.
We will win a World Series within 5 years. I think we're going to win within 3 years. And like you said, I think we'll be in it within, 2 years. Why not? You got to believe. So
Us and the
so, yeah.
Padres for the next few years, I think. And LCS, us and the Padres going to be battling it out. Two young, fun teams. It's going to be awesome.
It's crazy, man. Like, and we all got like our we discounted Cleveland guys. Like all the Indians had to make their trades. They got Clevenger and all that stuff. We got Lindor and Carrasco. So it's going to be very interesting to see how it all goes. And it's going to be so hard. Like those guys are going to be cocky and it's going to be fun. Like I like as much as I hated some of the Braves, like I did respect how like good they were and stuff like that. If like Tatis rubs it in our face, I'm sure we're all going to hate Manny Machado by that point.
Oh yeah.
But if Tatis rubs it in our face, like, you just have to live with it. He's going to be awesome. So, and then whatever the Dodgers do for the foreseeable future, as the rest of the National League like goes on welfare, whatever it is.
Absolutely. So that's all we got for you, Clem. And this is really awesome. This is a great first guest. Welcome back anytime. I know you're busy with all the work you do at Barstool, but we appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Hey, no problem at all, man. You guys keep crushing it, and we'll have to meet up at a game one day. Hopefully, I'm hoping by like June latest that we're able to at least get to the park, at least on a limited basis, and go meet up and all that kind of stuff. But keep doing it. It's there's no better time to be a Mets fan, no better time to be doing a Mets podcast than right now. I lived through some of those dark days. Trust me, we are on the other side of it. I hope. God, please, Uncle Stevie, please.
Absolutely. He'll get it done, no doubt. Thank you, Clem. We appreciate it, man.
No problem,
Thank you.
guys. Have a good one. Thanks for having me.
You too.
Bye.
Shout out Clem from Barstool. Awesome interview. Windrum, hats off, man. Tip of the
He's a
cap.
great
That's
guy.
a go.
I've
Yeah.
loved following him for as long as I have. I've been following him since 2015. And he's just the embodiment of the excited, optimistic Mets fan that we all want to be, but at times we never are. So just loved having him on.
Yeah, no doubt. So thank you, Clem, again. Now, just real quick, we got about 3.5 minutes left on this episode. So real quick, let's go around the next move that will be made by our next episode. And I'm calling it. I'm probably going too easy and simple here, but I'm going Brad Hand on a 2-year deal, maybe $24 million. I got Brad Hand coming to the Mets.
Exactly where I was going to go. I was going to go Brad Hand. I could that money makes sense. 2 years, 24, 25 mil, something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could see that.
It might be hard though with the contract that Hendricks just got though. Like that's going to be, yeah.
I'll go big. You know what? I'll think about it. I think by the next time we talk, I think we're either George Springer will be in blue and orange or DJ LeMahieu. I don't know which one.
Okay.
But I have a gut feeling about one of them.
I'd be down for that.
LeMahieu more and more over the past few weeks has been, at first I'm like, it's never going to happen, but I just have this gut feeling. I think we might pull off DJ.
Dude, I will dance on every Yankee fan's grave if we get LeMahieu. I'll never let any of them live it down. None of them will live it down. They don't deserve it. We deserve it. And oh my God, I hope that. I really hope. But good stuff, boys. Windrum again. Good job getting Clem. Thank you for coming on. And we'll talk again soon whenever the next news drops. Peace.